Founded in 1729, Arlington Street continues today as a gathering place for progressive people of faith in the greater Boston area and beyond. We are located at the corner of Arlington and Boylston Streets, across from the Public Garden in Boston, Massachusetts. Arlington Street Church, gathered in love and service for justice and peace.
William Blake's classic mystical poetic spirit, finding eternity within our grasp, holding infinity in the palm of our hand and eternity in an hour. We've been exploring what it means to live our mortal and therefore very finite lives, knowing or at least sensing that something might continue beyond us that was also here before us. How do we make meaning of our lives against the arc of all that was, is, and is yet to be? How can we tune our actions and our spirits to what lasts in the midst of the world that is fleeting? We're just beginning the Christian season of Lent and the Muslim holy month of Ramadan, with folks in each tradition tuning their attention to more fully aligning themselves with the holy through prayer and fasting, almsgiving, and extra attention to what is eternal. Whatever has been out of balance in these times for both faith traditions is meant to be brought back into harmony with the way of faith, to see our daily choices about where we spend our energy and attention through the lens of the sacred. Now, the world has never been a particularly tidy or uncomplicated place, but right now it sure feels as if there are extra helpings of mess all around us. Alarming, heartbreaking, fear-inducing mountains of human failings and our capacity for evil piling up on all sides. So fighting back the tide of overwhelm at the state of the world just to find some equilibrium can itself feel like a full-time job. And yet, whatever our religious observance, the invitation of the life of the Spirit is to return to what we know about what is eternal, to tune ourselves to the deeper and sometimes simpler rhythms that sustain us while the world around us seems to unravel. In the play Our Town, Thornton Wilder's narrator takes a few moments to offer a little bit of theology, or I would say there's theology throughout, but he says, "Now there are some things we all know, but we don't take them out and look at them very often. We all know something is eternal, and it ain't houses, and it ain't names, and it ain't earth, and it ain't even stars. No, everybody knows in their bones something is eternal, and that something has to do with human beings. All the greatest people who ever lived have been telling us that for 5,000 years, and yet you'd be surprised how many people are always losing hold of it. There's something way down deep that's eternal about every human being." Now, those are certainly comforting words when we lose a loved one, contemplate our own deaths. Something about us will carry on. Sometimes we feel it in the moment with another person. Something about this moment will carry on, beyond the two of us in it or the many of us in it, something eternal and lasting. I first experienced this with my grandmother, my mother's mother, Donna. She was a no-nonsense matriarch who I barely knew because she lived in Ohio and my family lived in Iran. But some of my few memories of her are from a visit we made to Ohio when I was about 5 years old. She had been diagnosed with lung cancer, though she had never been a smoker. She was just 57. And it quickly became clear that her diagnosis was terminal. I didn't know or understand any of this at my young age. I just saw that my grandfather's Barca lounger, which usually was the royal seat in the living room of their farmhouse, was squeezed into a tight corner to make room for her hospital bed. Nurses came and went, and my mother and her sisters spoke in hushed tones that, of course, I worked hard to overhear. At some point, they got tired of trying to shoo me away and decided to find a way for me to be useful. And I got the best job I still think I've ever had. It was to crush ice and feed it to Grandma to help keep her hydrated and comfortable. Now, for a 5-year-old, this involved filling a bag with ice and then slamming it hard against the floor to break it up, then using a meat tenderizer to hammer it into tiny shards of cold wetness. Very satisfying work. And then, importantly, with a gentleness to match the intensity I had just lent to that ice crushing, I scooped that pulverized ice into a small bowl and got a very small teaspoon and carried it ceremonially into the living room. I pulled up a chair next to my grandmother's bed and slowly slipped the ice shavings into her mouth, spoonful by spoonful. Focused very importantly on the task at hand, I got a chance to study my grandmother's face. It certainly had looked better in her day, as she would have said it, but it was beautiful to me. Each and every line and wrinkle a story I might never know, but I could feel. And in those moments of simple connection that I had no words for at the time and still struggle for words for now, I felt a sense that we were united for all time. I did not know her well. She had so many more stories than I would ever hear. And that was my last visit with my grandmother. She died a few months later when we were back home in Iran. But there was something in that passage between my brand new life and her fading life that held in it everything I ever needed to know about death, about what was important. We were connected physically by that action of the ice chips for those few months, but a deeper connection would continue. This is one of my most precious memories. As I've grown older, I've come to appreciate most pointedly the fact that the adults around me at that time, sensing my curiosity and my engagement, didn't pull me away from the sight of my grandmother's suffering. They put me into contact with it in a way that I could manage. They let me do the small job a child could do, and they let me witness what was real and true. Buddhist teacher Thich Nhat Hanh writes, "During many lifetimes, birth and death are present, giving rise to birth and death. The moment the notion of birth and death arises, birth and death are there. As soon as the notion of birth and death dies, real life is born." When we get those glimpses of whatever quality it is that abides beyond our lifetimes of living in these bodies, we touch that place he calls real life. In Buddhist terms, that is Brahman, the sacred unity that is beyond the illusions of this material existence. Those illusions of our lives almost always include visions of how things are supposed to be. The plans we have made and done all the things to line up for the ideal result. The ways we have been good and honest and humble that must mean things will have to work out for us. The ideals we hold of democracy or justice or stability. They are persistent in their mythology, in our aspirations. But we have far more evidence of the fact that our deepest lessons are not in the times that what we expect about life or death come to pass, but in how we respond to real life, what is in front of us. The things we don't expect, may not welcome, cannot control. In a different and perhaps his shortest poem, paraphrased for inclusiveness, William Blake writes, "Those who bind themselves to joy do the winged life destroy, but those who kiss the joy as it flies live in eternity's sunrise." Buddhists would call this the teaching of impermanence, of non-attachment. And yet every mystical tradition returns to this practice, finding connection to the source of being by offering fierce attention to the present moment, not holding on to our illusion of what it should have been or our mortal plans of what we could do. One of the most famous cases of the ups and downs of this winged life is the journey of Apollo 13, launched with the clear goal of landing on the moon. Now, this story I tell knowing that probably half of you know way more about it than I do and will school me in the receiving line, so bring it on. But I will say that midway through their flight, an oxygen tank exploded, crippling both their propulsion and their life support. "Houston, we've had a problem here," was broadcast to mission control. In the midst of cascading failures and the certainty that they would be extremely lucky to return to Earth alive, never mind landing on the moon, Jim Lavelle and his team focused minute by minute on what they could do with the skills and resources at hand. Low on fuel, they made the careful but risky calculation to try to use the force of the moon's gravitational pull to slingshot themselves back to the Earth. Their survival depended on a clear attention to current conditions, careful communication, and quick, practical adjustments rather than clinging to that original mission. Apollo 13 became a lesson in presence. When the future unravels, attending to that next correct action, the one step at a time, with the simple faith that what we have is enough, is all that matters. Now here's what the Apollo 13 team did not do. They didn't sit and perseverate over the dashed dreams of that moon landing. They didn't point fingers to blame who or what might have caused that oxygen tank failure. There would be plenty of analysis of that later. They didn't close themselves up in fear for their lives. They brought what they had to meet the moment as it was. And then they met that moment, and then the next, and then the next. Charlotte Clymer calls Apollo 13's successful return to the Earth a stunner wrapped in a phenomenon inside nesting dolls of miracles. And so it was. But it was also a lesson in tuning ourselves to one another and to a larger mission than we may have imagined. Similar stunners are happening all the time now, even in the midst of our current chaos. Nice Midwesterners are organizing grocery drives for their neighbors who live in fear of our government's goons. People across the country are standing up for immigrants, for trans folks, for the rule of law. The stories may seem modest one at a time, but the swell of action is rising, one small connection at a time. Another Buddhist teacher, Tuere Sala, writes, "We're not trying to stand in the middle of something and know that the situation will pass. We're trying to stand in the middle of it and know that our overwhelm will pass. That's what's passing. The situation itself may take a long time, and we will have to put some effort in it. But what we're aimed at as practitioners is to first let our overwhelm pass. Let it be, let it rise and fall as emotions do." Blake's winged life again. One step at a time, one teaspoon of ice chips, one hand extended in compassion, one heart open to reconciliation. The one next action we can take is what will keep us connected, keep us whole. So whether you are fasting to return your focus to the deepest things that matter this month, or offering extra time and attention to someone in need, or just focusing on your own next breath, it's in finding our place in the midst of the uncertain swirl of this life, by remembering the places where we have felt connected to all of life. And what humble skill or gift we have to offer, that is when we create a legacy worth remembering. Let us feel ourselves part of that flow of endless time, at home in eternity's sunrise, as we greet the week ahead. Amen. My friends, may we remember to kiss the joy as it flies, in faith that another dawn is coming, that our presence, our gifts, our voices, our vision matter now and for all time. Carry that purpose and that passion, that vision and that heart with you into the week ahead and all of the days of your life. The service begins when the service ends. Amen.
We will care, and
we will care for each other as the world around us unravels, and we will tend to the spark of hope that lives within our beating hearts. And we are here now in this present moment, lifting our voices and hearts. And we are here now, we have come together, we are tending the spark
of hope.
Of hope, oh, may it grow,
and we will care
for each other as the world around us unravels, and we will tend to the spark of hope that lives within our beating hearts. And we are here now in this present moment, lifting our voices and hearts. And we are here now, we have come together, we are tending the spark of hope. Oh, may it grow. Of hope, oh, may it grow, and we will care for each other.
We are located at the corner of Arlington and Boylston Streets, across from the Public Garden in Boston, Massachusetts. Arlington Street Church, gathered in love and service for justice and peace.